James Reese here from Overtime Heroics MMA. I'm here today with UFC Bantamweight Jack Shore. How's things going with you, mate? All right?
Yeah, so as good as it can be, but in the lockdown, I suppose. But can't complain. I'm fit and healthy, and I haven't got the COVID-19 virus, so it could be worse.
That's always good to hear, then, mate, isn't it? Obviously, real mad circumstances at the moment, isn't it? How are you sort of dealing with that from sort of a committed side of things then, you know what I mean? Because obviously it's with it being stuck in, I mean, I suppose it only allows you to do the running and things like that, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, obviously it's training wise is a lot less and a lot different to what I'm used to. I don't do a lot of road running just because I run so much. I do a lot of it on the treadmill to save my knees. So obviously I haven't got that luxury so much now. Now we're on the lockdown. Fortunately, obviously still live with my old man, so we can do bits of pad work and stuff like that. But again, nothing even close to what we be doing on a day-to-day basis usually. But I suppose I just been keeping myself busy. I've just bought my own house that's under a bit of construction, so I've been popping down there and doing little bits and bobs on my own. Obviously, because I can't have people in there with me due to the social distancing and all that. But I've just been trying to keep busy, take my mind off it. I don't think we're going to fight for a while. So it's just been a matter of training where I can. Obviously, my fitness level is always good, so it's just keeping on top of that. Obviously, not letting myself get out of shape or anything. But again, obviously sticking within the guidelines as well that the government have put in place for us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. As you just say, you don't think you'll be fighting for a while, so you don't think you're going to be one of these guys on Dana's Mystery Island, then, mate? You?
I mean, it sounds great, doesn't it? It's a great idea, the Mystery Island and everything. But I mean, realistically, when I look at it, the bigger picture, then I should imagine the guys that will be fighting on that, if it does happen, will be the bigger names. And also, I mean, it's the logistics of it. I've been told by a couple of reliable sources that they're now turning, they're turning people away from London if you're not living in the area. So for me to obviously get on a private jet to fly, I would imagine they're not going to get me from Cardiff Airport. It's going to have to be from a big one up that way. So I can't imagine the logistically I could fly out. And even looking past that, there's the gym's closed. So I mean, I would be all for taking a short notice fight if the gym is open and running as normal, because I'm always fit, I'm always in the gym, I'm always sparring. But the gym has been closed about 3 weeks or so now. It doesn't look like it's going to be opening anytime soon, and realistically, I'm not sure if I would be physically and mentally comfortable, jumping into a fight in the UFC at a high level without any sparring or any training. And also I've not been able to do any for like the last sort of month tidy. So it's one of them, but we'll see what happens, I suppose.
Yeah, that was always the downside I sort of seen in this, really. I mean, with them talking, like, obviously now with the Tony Gaethje fights being short notice, obviously their training have been sort of hit the last couple of weeks. But going forward now, I mean, if you've got guys that wasn't even meant to be fighting, so to speak, they haven't been able to train properly now for a good, as you say, 3 weeks to a month, maybe, depending on where they was from. I mean, that's surely got to have some sort of, as you say, mental as well as physical implications, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no doubt. Obviously, like you said, the longer we wait to fight, the longer the gap between us having any proper training has been. Obviously, you've got people like Khabib and Tony. Then, although they haven't been able to sort of train tidy like the last, I mean, I know Tony trains a lot on his own anyway. But although they haven't been able to train tidy the last sort of 2.5, 3 weeks, they've probably in all likeliness had 8 weeks before that of just normal prep for a fight. If they came to us now and said you got a fight in 4 weeks' time, well, you add on to that the fact we haven't trained for 3 weeks, properly, haven't sparred, rolled, done any stand up. Then again, that's 7 weeks where realistically, are you properly prepared for a fight just through running? And I'm lucky I can do a bit of pad work and stuff with my old man in the house, but not everyone's got that luxury. So it's a tough one for the fighters, really. I mean, we want to get paid, of course we do, but at the same time, is it worth jumping in there and risking a loss when you're not properly prepared? It's a lot of logistics. Like, I mean, for the fans, it's a great idea jumping on a plane and going to a mystery island and fighting. The fans get to watch the fight, but for the fighters, it's not if we want to get paid, then great. But it's not as simple as that. Then it's not as simple as, oh yeah, great, he's bought an island. I'll put my name in the hat for that. It's one of them. It's like you got to sum it up in the UFC is cutthroat. If you lose, sometimes of people in the UFC who've lost 2 fights in a row and they've been cut. So do you really want to risk picking up a silly loss or not put on a great performance because you can't train tidy for the fight? It's a tough one, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, in particular for guys like yourself, I mean, you've got a really good undefeated streak going at the moment, don't you? And to just sort of take a short notice and prepared for fight, basically, I mean, it's sort of career suicide, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, if the gym was open and things were running as normal, then I'd have no problem. If the UFC came to me and said, "Do you want to fight in 3-4 weeks?" If my weight was good and I was feeling sharp, which I usually am pretty decent with because I'm in the gym 24/7, then I'd be all for it. I'm not against taking short notice fights under normal circumstances, but the situation we're in at the minute is a little bit, I mean, we've never had to deal with something like this before, so it's a tough one. I suppose a lot of us are in the same boat, and there's probably a lot of fighters feeling the same way. I mean, I'm fortunate that the money I have made through fighting, even back when I was fighting for Cage Wars, I was getting paid well, so I've been smart on my money and saved a little bit and got a bit behind me to the point where I don't need a fight then in the next 4 weeks to ensure that there's money on the table. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a wealthy guy by any means, but I'm comfortable for a couple of months, until all this blows over. Whereas unfortunately, some guys got families to feed. They sort of, especially the guys who've just gone in the UFC. Guys like Jair, but then I know he was a scaffolder full time. He obviously signed for the UFC. Quit work, and I've seen obviously because of all this, he's had to go back to work for a couple of weeks to provide for his family. So it's a tough one for them. But again, the situation is changing every day, with the government guidelines and what the UFC is doing and what America are doing and China are doing. So we just got to take it really sort of a day at a time at the minute and see what comes of it. Because if you go back to a week or 2 weeks ago, we wasn't in this situation. And 2 weeks before that, I thought I was going to be fighting in a week's time on the London card. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster, and it's just one of them we got to take it as it comes.
Yeah, definitely. Before we jump into questions, one more thing I got to bring up. You're normally quite a sort of chill, down-to-earth guy. Don't normally see you having any back and forth with anyone. A certain Nathaniel Wood seemed to have got a bit of a rise out of recently. How was that, mate?
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone knows it's not my style. The Twitter, you even see now in my response, I said this is not my thing. That the Twitter beef is nonsense. A lot of it is just people looking to create a bit of a rivalry to get a fight going. I don't know. I mean, I asked to fight Nathaniel years ago when he was the Cage Warriors champion, purely because he was the Cage Warriors champion. It wasn't because I disliked him or thought he was a shit fighter or nothing like that. He was the champion. I wanted to fight for the belt. He moved on, and I don't think I mentioned his name. Well, I mentioned his name since the day I called him out. I don't think, but he gets a little bit touchy when people bring up my name to him. So
yeah, you say you do think he took it a bit personal because he seems to like a fair, it's once or twice now in the last few months I've seen him sort of name drop.
Listen, it's like if you were gonna bite to, if I responded to every guy with 10 followers who said I was shit and said that so and so could beat me online, I'd be responding to people all day long. That's how Twitter is. For whatever reason, they got under his skin, and he lost his last fight, so maybe he's looking to draw a bit of interest back in him. There's a lot of hype behind me. There's a lot of people got their eyes on me. Maybe perhaps he's feeling a little bit sour about that, and after picking up a recent loss, he wants to try and get himself back into the mix and draw a bit of attention to himself. But it's not my style. I did respond, but that'll be it from me. I say what I had to say, and if we get a match up in the future, great. Then it'll be a cracking fight, I should imagine. But if we don't get matched up, it ain't the end of the world either. But of course, I'd love to fight them. I'd love to fight anyone in the division, test my skills against whoever the UFC put me in front. I want to be one of them guys who's not picking and choosing their opponents. I want to prove that I'll fight whoever's put in front of me. And if that's Nathaniel Wood, then he'll have the same treatment as everyone else, and he'll be another one added to the list. But I'm not going to be chasing him and calling him out and biting every time one of his fans says he could spark me out, because that's MMA and that's social media. So, he needs to get, he should get a little bit thicker skin, I think, because to be biting into some guy who's got 10 followers, giving him a bit of stick on Twitter, you'll be biting all day long.
Yeah, I think he might have looked back on that a bit later on and thought, sort of maybe wish he hadn't done that, because it was a bit of a silly comment to have made as well, really. I mean, to have pointed out that you went to a decision against Vaughan, bearing in mind that's the only time we've actually gone to the scorecards, and especially with him coming off the loss, it seemed like a bit of a pointless.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of people in MMA and in the division that you can point fingers at when it comes to going to the decision, but I am one of those people. I've finished 11 out of 12 fights, and the Vaughan Lee I fought was a different Vaughan Lee to the one he fought. So he can take what he wants from that. I said what I said on Twitter. Everyone knows the facts, and they know 9 times out of 10 as proven, 11 times out of 12 even. If I get a win, I'm going to put you away, and that is what it is. If he takes satisfaction in me going the distance with Vaughan Lee, then good on him. I hope it gives him a little bit of peace of mind. Yeah,
definitely. Bigger picture time in MMA, do you know what I mean? I'll go on to a couple of questions then, because obviously I made it public that we was going to have an interview, and a couple of people expressed some questions they wanted me to put over with you. We start off then. We've got from Cameron Reese. What was it that got you started in MMA?
Well, I started kickboxing at a young age. My old man, I should imagine, just put me into it to get me out the house, as your parents do when you're a youngster. I ran with it, ended up getting my black belt in kickboxing. I think I took about a year off when I was 11 years old, sort of thing. I was into my rugby, into my football, so just lost a bit of interest. And then my old man opened Tulare Combat then, and in a nightclub cellar back in 2007. I was 12 or 13 years old, so there was no kids class at the time. Despite being 12, I was training with the men, and you think you're the kiddie at that age when you're surrounded by 18, 19-year-old boys who are all semi-pro and pro fighters, surrounded by people like Marsh, the same boys I'm surrounded by now: Marshman, Des, Tetley, Martin McDonough, people like that. So I thought I was the kiddie, and I was half, despite being a little fat kid, I was half decent, and they were all training for MMA fights, so I was just doing the same training they was doing, and they brought me on as a kid, and it just went from loving being in the gym, being around the boys, to just thinking, what, I think I just fell in love with the sport, and I've been in love with it ever since. Like, I've trained nigh on every night of my life since, for the last 13 years since opening the Tulare Combat Gym, Monday to Friday. I've been there every night, so it was just one of them. It was almost like a natural instinct then. I've never told to go training, or I was never told you got to fight or do you want to fight. It was just like, I always, for as far back as I can remember, I just remember being in the gym and wanting to fight and compete, and it's just taken off from there.
Yeah, well, that 12-year-old kid training with them grown-ups definitely seemed to have worked out for you, mate, anyway, didn't they? In the right direction.
It definitely paid off in the long run. Yeah, getting beat up by the older boys definitely toughened me up, if nothing else.
Yeah, for sure. Question number 2. I can't remember who it was that asked this. I can't find it now, but I know it was asked. What is, in your view, is the condition of the current bantamweight division in the UFC?
Yeah, it's probably as stacked as it's ever been. It's been a little bit of a hold up, I suppose, with the belt. Obviously, Cejudo, when Cejudo won the belt, he's been injured and whatever, so there's been a little bit of a hold up there. But other than that, I mean, you look at the top 20, top 15, top 10 guys, it's as stacked as it's ever been. There's not an easy fight in the division, I don't believe. There's not superstars, but there's well-known names, and from the champion right the way up to sort of rank 15, you would know every one of them guys. So as far as divisions go, is one of the best in the UFC, one of the most talent stacked, and one of the most entertaining to watch. So it's obviously a privilege and a pleasure to be part of it, and I'm looking forward now, once all this virus and nonsense passes, to getting back in the mix and trying to work my way up the ladder.
Yeah, definitely. question 3 we got from Lewis Evans. Obviously, as you say, the London cancellation. What was the situation with that? Was the fighters reimbursed for it, or was it just a case of we booked the same card effectively down the line when all this is blown over?
No, so obviously the fight got cancelled. We sort of didn't know if we were going to get paid or reimbursed or compensated or whatever. But I've got one of the best managers in the game, Graham Boylan. I know he's got a good working relationship with the UFC and Sean Shelby and Dana. So he said to me straight away, look, he said, don't panic. I'm 99% confident I'll get you some sort of compensation. And then about a week ago, he dropped me a phone call, just to say, look, you're going to be compensated this much. And, as far as like the status of rebooking the fight or whatever goes, we're none the wiser on that at the minute, but you will be compensated, obviously, because the fight being pulled was out of our hands. So, again, big thanks to Graham for sorting that, and the UFC as well for doing right by their fighters. Obviously, they take a lot of slack sometimes, the UFC, for the way they treat certain people or whatever, but I can only speak from experience, and from the one fight week I did out in Copenhagen, they treat you like royalty. They can't do enough for you. All they want you to do is worry about making weight and then obviously being fit and healthy to fight. And it's great that despite not fighting, they've still compensated us, because fight camp is expensive. People don't realize the costs. Even when you don't travel for fight camp, like my gym's in my hometown, but it's still an expensive 12 weeks between your training and your private lessons and your diet and everything else. So, and your travel. So it's an expensive couple of weeks, but big thanks to UFC for making it that not all us fighters didn't go to loss. Then I think majority of the card or motorweight, all the card has been paid. I would imagine. So it's great to work for a company that's obviously got the fighters' best interest at heart as well.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a great thing to hear. That is, because as you say, they do get a lot of shit over it really, and the fact they've come out and back their fighters, that's always a positive thing. Final question, mate. This is from Mark Lewis. Who would you like to fight from past or present? If it was anyone you could step in there with, who would it be?
I think I've said this before, and this isn't like I want to fight him because I don't like him, but since probably 15 years of age, I've been a proper fanboy of Frankie Edgar. He's been one of my favourite fighters for years. I've always, whenever he's fought, even up all his recent fights, I've always rooted for him. He's one of the sport's good guys. You can, I've never met him or anything, but you can see he's a genuine, humble guy. He's a family man, but exciting to watch as well. Cardio through the roof, never in a boring fight. One of those is he's in it till you put him to sleep. As long as he's conscious, then he's still fighting. So being such a big fan of him for so long, and now he's obviously moved to bantamweight. I suppose it'd be bittersweet to fight him really, because I'd be a bit of a fanboy. But I would love to. I mean, what a story it would be to tell the grandkids that I grew up watching this guy as one of my favorite fighters, one of my idols, and I got to share the cage with him. Win, lose or draw, it would just be an honor to be in there with him. I know he's coming to the tail end of his career now, so whether that'll happen, timing-wise with me coming up through the ranks and him, maybe not going to be about that long, I don't know, but it would be an honour to step in there with him at some point in my career. Obviously, he's at the top of the tree at the minute, and I'm working my way up, so I'm not saying that I'm calling Frankie Edgar out for a fight, because that's not the case, but if in a year or two's time I've done enough to work my way up to a sort of top 10 spot, and it'd be an honour to share the cage with him.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, mate. Well, look, Jack, I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to do this. As you say, you're busy with your new house and things at the moment as well. Just want to thank you for taking your time out. Obviously, hope this stuff, all this craziness goes away so we can see you back at UFC cage soon, mate.
Yeah, appreciate it, James, and thanks for having me on. Obviously, without the media and stuff like that, especially in times like this, as fighters probably won't have a voice. So appreciate you having me on and giving us a platform as well.
Thank you very much, Jack. Have a great day, mate.